What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's Flashback Reviews, where I take movies from the past, break them down, and tell you what I think about them. If you like what you see, of course hit that subscribe button, join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find out what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome, hit that like button, as well as comment below on any video that you watch, including this one. So Ilya Naishuller is a fascinating, interesting director. As we know, he just came out with Nobody, which of course is a fun, entertaining, over-the-top, silly, but great action film that of course had Bob Odenkirk as the main and protagonist. He was a badass, character similar like John Wick or whoever Liam Neeson ends up playing in the next movie. And it was a lot of fun. It was completely something I was not expecting to love, but Bob Odenkirk's a great actor, so he did some amazing stuff in that movie. But enough of that movie. Let's talk about the first actual film that Ilya Naishuller actually directed in the Hollywood system. And that movie, of course, was called Hardcore Henry. Now, Hardcore Henry is a fascinating film in that it's one of the most successful video game movies that is not actually based off a video game property, which is really funny to see, which makes me wonder, is it even worth adapting video game properties into movies when you can do something like this? And the reason I say it's a first-person video game movie is it's completely told from the first-person point of view of this unnamed protagonist. This guy has no idea what's going on. His wife, who's played by Bennet, is basically trying to put him back together with all kinds of mechanics and stuff like that. So you were, at the beginning of this movie, in the first stages of a playable character in a video game. This movie actually reminded me a lot of games like Mirror's Edge and of course Dying Light. Now Mirror's Edge and Dying Light, if you've never heard of these games or if you don't play video games, are two games that basically are from first person point of views. Mirror Edge is a parkour runner, which you are always constantly being chased by bad guys and whatnot. You can do a lot of martial arts moves and stuff like that. And then you have Dying Light, which is a zombie first person parkour type game where you're constantly being chased by zombies, but you craft weapons and you kill them with very interesting different ways and fun and all that good stuff. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it takes from those games. It just means that it feels very, very influenced by it because of the simple fact of, like I said, when you wake up in this movie, you are confronted by this character name played by Bennet, and she is your wife. She's helping put you back together. She's trying to you basically bring back your memory and stuff like that. And in essence, for an hour and 35 minutes as this movie takes place, you are constantly on the run. You're constantly from the first person point of view. You're being chased by bad guys. You do some insane kind of creative parkour. You do some insane kind of gunplay. Very, very violent stuff happens, and you're constantly on the move, and you never stop, which is what, like I said, like what Mirror's Edge and of course Dying Light are like. And in the process of everything, you're being chased by this guy named Akon, or being stalked by this guy named Akon, who has abilities kind of like Magneto, because you're full of mechanics and stuff like that, and he can lift and kill a bunch of people and stuff like that with just a switch of his hand. But basically, you're on the run from him, and he's like your ultimate bad guy. He's the one you're going to face at the very end of the game or end of the movie. Bennet's character is like that NPC, which is a non-playable character, which is any character, any video game that you play where you go up to the character and you talk to them, but you don't actually play as them. And so he is basically trying to save her as well as trying to get away from these people that Akon controls. There's, like I said, there's gunplay, there's parkour stuff going on, there's constant movement through different parts of the city. It does look like a single shot type movie where it's just nonstop shooting, no camera edits. But if you really look at it closely, there are edits, so it's not really a one take type movie, but it's made to feel like that and so on and so forth. It's a little kind of choppy in a lot of places, which is his main problem. But for the most part, it does a pretty decent job of making you feel like you're constantly moving, that there's no edits, there's no takes, and it really feels like Ilya Naishuller is doing a really nice job of portraying this, undisclosed character, I guess you could say, which you actually only see once at the very end of the movie when he falls to the ground. And in the process, like a lot of video games, you have a character that is your kind of guide. If you've ever seen Jumanji, the guy at the very beginning has the Australian accent. He's like the guy that's giving them information and stuff like that. Well, we have a character who's played by Sharlto, who of course was in District 9. He's an individual that seems to keep popping up in different places of this movie. He gets killed many times, but for some reason he'll pop up as like, a Russian agent or a guy of a brothel who owns the brothel, or he'll just pop up as like a Marine or something like that. And what ends up happening is he's like the character that's kind of keeping you pushing forward. He's trying to get you to a specific location. And I think Sharlto Copley is actually to stand out of this movie, because outside of the actual idea that's being presented, which is that first person narrative, because Sharlto Copley is one of those individuals that's so manic and so expressive and just so goofy and over the top and out there when it comes to his logic and reasoning when the movies he does, that he feels like he's just your atypical video game character. He's just amazing to watch. He's egocentrical. He's insane. When you find out what actually happens to him, how he's involved with Akon, it's a character that just truly stands out in the movie that's being presented. And what ends up happening as you're going through these set pieces, as you're in the middle of these gun battles and everybody's dying and very violent things are happening. If you can't stand gore and violence, by the way, do not watch this movie, because there is some graphic content in it. But if you love that type of stuff, if you like good horror, Tom Savini type violence, then I think you'll enjoy this movie quite a bit. But what ends up happening, because the story doesn't really have much of a story, is he's always following you. He seems to know where you're at. And then Sharlto Copley's character, he ends up picking you up and taking you to this secret hideout base. And you find out that Sharlto Copley's character ended up at one point working for Akon's character. And in essence, they're devising, and this is very video gaming in its nature, these super soldiers that can be mind controlled by specific people. And in essence, what ends up happening is Sharlto Copley has stolen that tech and basically made millions, or not millions, but bunches and bunches of himself that he can control from his wheelchair, because he's been badly damaged and hurt because of Akon and his force-like abilities and stuff like that. And so after everything's said and done, you realize that there's an eye chip in the unnamed protagonist's skull that is actually kind of like a beacon for Akon. That's how he's able to figure out where he's at any given moment. You end up basically saving a couple of Sharlto Copley's his creature characters or whatever. They end up in the skyscraper, which is the last level, boss level, or whatever you want to call it. And Sharlto Copley dies very, very violently. And of course, as these movies do, you find adrenaline, and you fight a bunch of minions and stuff like that. And then you fight Akon, and of course Akon gets decapitated. Haley Bennett's character, we find out, or halfway through the movie or so on and so forth, that basically Akon and the Haley Bennet character, who's playing Henry's wife, because Henry is the name of the unnamed protagonist, as a kind of test subject. Now, because I told you about what the character by Sharlto Copley was playing, they've decided to allow the simulation to run to see where it can go, to build better super soldiers. That's why you always see these super soldiers fighting Henry and stuff like that. And in essence, what they're doing is they're coming out with this fake program where you see, of course, Tim Roth, who plays his father, who's not real, and of course the Haley Bennet character, who ends up being like I said, an NPC, who is a fake person in essence, not really his wife. And it causes Henry, of course, to throw Haley Bennett's character out the helicopter. He shuts the door on her fingers, which is really disturbing. And that's the end of the movie. So in essence, it's an hour and a half long video game movie with setups and characters that you meet that could be your friend or your enemy. You have betrayals, you have twists and turns. And like I said, unlike something like Clue, it's a movie that has no property to behold upon. So it can do its own crazy, zany, over-the-top violent things. And that's why it's probably one of the best not actual video game movies of all time. It's so much fun. This is a movie that if I had been reviewing movies back in 2016, I would have put in my top 10 or at least honorable mention, because what this movie does is it takes a source material, it takes a source of idea and really runs with it and does it in a very over-the-top, crazy, ultra-violent, and does it with such panache. It doesn't need a story, it doesn't need characters that make a lot of sense, but because the movie is a lot of fun, it's very entertaining, and because we got movies like I said, John Wick, and of course the Liam Neeson movies, and now Nobody, it's a movie that really feels ahead of its time with what it's trying to do, and it just doesn't care what you think about it. It's going to throw everything in your face, and you're going to enjoy it or you're going to hate it. And like I said before, it has a lot of steady cam footage. It's basically guy with mask with camera in front of him running lots and lots of times. Actually, one of the stunt people was Ilya Naishuller as one of the unnamed Henry characters. But it's bonkers how they were able to just set this up and make it work. And, it really feels like you're in the thrust of everything. It's like I said, it looks like they took Doom and completely expanded upon it for an hour and 30 minutes. And it's something that shouldn't work, but it truly does. And like I said, it didn't make a lot of money. I think for the most part, I think it's like in the 70s or 80s in the Rotten Tomatoes meter. But It's a movie that I think when you go into it and you know what you're expecting, and as long as you can handle the emotion, shaking, I think you'll get on board with it and how excited you are and how much you enjoy it and everything that it presents to you. Because it's a movie, like I said, it shouldn't work, it shouldn't be this exciting, but just everybody got on board and they knew what they were doing, and it's why I think Ilya Naishuller is going to become one of those like big name action directors like Derek Kolstad and stuff like that, because there's something about the way they view action, the way they become creative, because this is unlike anything you've ever seen before. That when you watch it and you watch, like, for instance, they're in a marketplace and Henry's beating up somebody and he's getting his ass kicked and stuff like that, and you see this throughout the movie, and you fly back because the camera's attached to the guy's face. Or you feel like up close and personal when you're punching someone and stuff like that. It just is really, really good. It really is. It's such a breath of fresh air when it comes to action, creativity, and movies just of that ilk. To me personally, it works really, really well. So, but that's it. That's my take on this film, which is Hardcore Henry. Of course, it's his 5th anniversary, which is pretty crazy. I actually thought it came out a lot longer ago, but 5 years is still a long time. But anyways, in the comments below, tell me what you think of this movie. What's your favorite scene? If you don't like this movie, I totally understand. But what about this movie just kind of makes you love it, I guess you could say. But anyways, let me know in the comments below. But otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.